Yesterday, Nigel Farage is out in the campaign trail for the Reform Party, and this is what happened to him. So some bloke in a red tunic starts chucking things that he's picking out of a bin. Watch him. He goes to this bin, and then he gets this stuff and fires it at Nigel Farage. Security guards on hand there to do what they did. But is it enough? Joining us this morning, a man who has experience much worse than that, what we saw yesterday. He is from Survivors Against Terror, and he is Brendan Cox, who sadly lost his wife Jo to a gun attack. Brendan, what do you think when you look at something like this, years after what happened to Jo, and still physical attacks are going on?
Yeah, I think it's deeply depressing that people think that you can resolve political disagreements with intimidation, with violence. And, some people think these things are a joke. The throwing of the milkshakes, the throwing of eggs, the throwing of paper cups. But these things aren't, because what they do is that they create a poisonous culture in our democracy. They make people who are willing to go further than that, not just throw things, perhaps throw a punch, perhaps worse than that, more likely to do that. So you can disagree vehemently with people like Farage, which I certainly do, but we have a responsibility to uphold the right of candidates, no matter their views, their right to campaign in a way and speak to the public in a way that they're able to get their points across. We have to let the ballot box do the talking, and not intimidation, and certainly not violence.
Obviously, this must be triggering for you in light of what happened to Jo and obviously the mother of your children. Do you think that it puts people off wanting to join politics, the fact that, in not just her case and Sir David Amos's case as well, they paid for their jobs with their lives. I know that Jo's sister stepped into her shoes and became the MP in her constituency, but there must be other people, ordinary people, who care about society, want to make a difference and think, frankly, I just don't want to put my family or myself in harm's way to do that job.
I think that's definitely true. I mean, I think there were probably two effects of what happened to Jo. Is one, it would certainly have scared a lot of people. And I think not just what happened to Jo, not just what happened to David Amos, but also the sort of day-to-day intimidation, the vitriol, the threat, both sort of explicit and implicit, to members of parliament, to councillors as well, is something which is a real problem and definitely puts people off. I also think that in Jo's case, people also related to her. And I think there were a lot of people, I've spoken to lots of them, who are inspired into politics because of her and because of her example. So I think it cuts both ways. But the fundamental thing here is that we have to defend our democracy. We have to make sure that people are able to go out on the campaign trail, no matter their views, that we can respond to their views at the ballot box. And that's what we should do this election.
But I think, Brendan, the fact, take Nigel Farage, almost everywhere he goes now, there's going to be some sort of verbal or physical attack on him. And I would say those are from people who don't fear the consequences. So the consequences mustn't be tough enough.
I'm sure that's partly the case. I mean, I think we need to draw a line and be careful here that protest is as legitimate as standing for election. So people protesting over things and indeed shouting and indeed heckling is part and parcel of our politics. We mustn't end up a sort of snowflake generation where people can't shout they disagree with you. But you have to draw a line where it comes to intimidation and where it comes to violence and where it comes to harassment. And that's the line we need to draw. I also think there's a responsibility of parties, particularly Farage's party, but others as well, to make sure that they aren't creating a climate where other people feel unsafe. You've seen so many examples of Reform candidates who have been on record calling people from ethnic minorities baboons, saying that we should have not fought Hitler, saying that women are the sponging gender. The Barnsley North candidate just very recently compared black people to savages. So that is also very important because that creates a hostile climate to minorities in our country, and that is also unacceptable.
Well, yes, I accept what you're saying in terms of we need to be careful what we say, but you could probably level that at all the parties. I'm thinking about a high-profile Tory donor who said that Diane Abbott inspired him to hate all black women and wanted to shoot her. And also Diane Abbott herself, you know, making inappropriate comments about racism and anti-Semitism and the like. So there's lots of transgressions going on. But I suppose to your point about, you know, what is behind this rise in all of that, and you obviously think it's about sort of public discourse, but do you think Twitter has a role in all of this? Do you think that the fact that it's become OK and normalised to be quite un-British and very rude online as keyboard warriors, it's spilling over into real life? And you know, how do we change this?
So 2 points. I think, firstly, you're absolutely right that this isn't limited to one party. You've seen the Greens today, for example, have real problems with anti-Semitism in their ranks. There is a particular problem with reform. It does seem to attract extremists into its ranks. They've got a series of problems across a different number of candidates. So I do think that needs to be taken more seriously by that party. To your point, I think absolutely social media is a key driver of this. I think what it has done is it has given a signal from people that that kind of abuse is normal. You get lots of, you know, the way the algorithm works, when you say something extreme, verging on violence, it's more likely to get promoted by the algorithm. More people are likely to see it. You're more likely to get more followers and more likes. And so that is distorting our politics. The reality is,
I agree,
in our country, the vast majority of people are in the middle of the road. They might strongly disagree with each other, but they wouldn't use violence. They wouldn't use intimidation. Social media is creating an atmosphere where that becomes more normalised, and that is a problem.
Brendan, good luck with what you're trying to do. Good talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, following on from what we were just talking to Brendan Cox about, the violence shown yesterday towards Nigel Farage, in the last few moments, South Yorkshire Police have charged Josh Greeley, 28-year-old man, with using threatening behaviour towards Nigel Farage after those objects were thrown at the Reform UK leader whilst he was campaigning. So that is a charge for Josh Greeley, 28 years old. And of course, we had 2 arrests last week after that milkshake thrown at Farage as well. Keep a close eye on all of that.
Wonder what will happen to him.